must be enough nice to be.
Ready for we don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got enough. I'd like to bring the January 10th, 2018 Mojave County Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Abbott?
Here.
Commissioner Selberg?
Here.
Commissioner Brule?
Here.
Commissioner Azarmi?
Here.
Commissioner Walker?
Here.
Commissioner Beller? Commissioner Kelly? Commissioner Gordon?
Here.
Commissioner Flouché?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. We have a couple of announcements. Anyone who has not yet signed in, please do so at the table located in the lobby. Should anyone wish to speak, please complete the request to speak form, which is also located on the lobby table next to the sign-in sheet. A request to speak form must be submitted and or completed for each item, including sub-items you wish to speak on. Please note that there are stairs on the right, left, and center aisle, and we ask that you use caution when using these stairs. There's also a ramp located at the audience's left. Anyone wishing, or rather, if anyone has any written comments, exhibits, petitions, photos, or letters they intend to present at today's meeting, please have 17 copies and give them to the staff member at the back of the auditorium. Cindy, would you please raise your hand? There she is. If you do not have 17 copies, you may use the overhead camera to present your documents. Please place your document on the podium and line it up with the arrows indicated. If you want your document to go on record, you must hand it to the clerk after your presentation with the agenda item clearly marked on the document. Members of the public cannot speak to the staff members that are seated at the table with the microphones during the meeting. If you have any questions, please see the staff member located in the back of the auditorium. All speakers will be limited to 2 minutes to make their presentation. Everyone, please turn off your cell phones or place them on vibrate during the meeting. If you have any, I'm sorry, I lost my place here. If you wish to make a call, please leave the meeting area and go to the outside to have your conversation. We ask that the audience refrain from talking with anyone during the presentations or discussions. Today, the Planning and Zoning Commission will hear public testimony and then forward a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. The items with the recommendation made by the Commission will be heard by the Board of Supervisors on Monday, February 5th, 2018 at 9:30 a.m. in the same location, with the exception of any continued items. Everyone attending the meeting is asked to remember that their administrative building and campus are tobacco-free areas, which means no smoking is allowed curb to curb. No food or drinks are allowed in the auditorium except for bottled water. If there are any items remaining on the agenda, the Commission will break for lunch at 1 p.m. Has everybody had a chance to read and review the minutes from last month? If so, I'll entertain a motion.
Second motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Selberg and a second by Commissioner Abbott. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 1.
Item number 1A is an evaluation of a request for an amendment to the Mojave County General Plan from a rural development area land use to a heavy industrial land use to allow for a dairy facility for assessor's parcel number 40427-089 in the Centennial Park vicinity. Staff recommends approval.
Okay, is the applicant present? The applicant is not
I am
present.
over the phone. This is Charles Hammond.
Oh, okay. We have no speakers on the item. Would you like to address the commission?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to attend this meeting over the phone. It really makes a big difference, seeing as how we're on the other side of the, the canyon. I don't know if you have questions. I certainly can answer the questions, but just a really quick backstory on this particular project. There has been an agricultural operation operating on this piece of property for years and years, and it's just been a private cooperative amongst those that are within the Sunset Capital Group. Going forward in the future, they would like to get more fully organized with the health department in the county and the state in order to get a functioning and fully operating dairy service where they can actually legally provide their products to the general public. So the portion of the property, the piece of property that we're asking for this amendment and a subsequent rezone is just so that we can bring this operation into compliance with county standards. Interestingly enough, we had a really bit of a kind of a hard time finding which zone fits a dairy operation. Maybe somebody can correct me, but I think this will be its only dairy operation in Mojave County.
Okay, I don't know, does
Other than
anybody?
that, I'm glad to answer any questions I have. You can.
Sure. Does the commission have any questions of the speaker? Thank you, sir. Any additional questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendation.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Zami, second by Commissioner Selberg. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 1B.
Item 1B is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of assessor's parcel number 40427-089 from an AR agricultural residential zone to an M2 general manufacturing zone to allow for operation of a dairy facility in the Centennial Park vicinity, Arizona Strip area. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions. There's also noted that a portion of the property is in the flood zone D. And with that, we added the condition that all applicable flood control requirements will be met. Thank you.
Okay, the applicant is online. We have one speaker, Steve Robinson.
Chairman, Board, I support this application, and I had one major question. Will the trucks be using Cane Beds Road and Rosie Canyon Road to go up into Utah? That was my question. I was just curious about that, if the applicant could answer that question.
Can you answer that, Mr. Harmon?
Yes, I'd be glad to make sure I understand your question correctly. Are you asking me if the operation, the trucks and whatnot are going to be using Rosie Canyon Road?
Correct.
It's not our intention. To be honest, I'm not that familiar with the operations of the enterprise, but most of the goods and services they produce, they want to be able to sell locally.
Okay, so they won't be transporting any supplies or anything, because it's a paved road and it's a good road now, I hear, but I was just wondering about that. That was all my question.
Beautiful and wonderful, and thank you for everybody's efforts in helping that. That has really been a big bonus to us in this area. As far as the manufacturing and the commercial element of this operations, we are probably better served using the highway to St. George going in the other direction.
Thank you.
But like I said, this operation for the most part is rather self-sustaining, and whatever they produce, they want to be able to sell at the local grocery store. And there's a building. This is kind of a long process, but this is the beginning steps of getting an existing structure on this property in compliance. The first thing we have to do is get this rezone so that we can go through the building department to get the permit to bring the building up to standard, so that we can have a small dairy building where we can put products for sale in the building.
Okay, we understand.
And I fully support any and every opportunity for business expansion in Mojave County.
Okay, we have no more speakers on the item. Anybody got any questions of the speaker? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Keller, second by Commissioner Gordon. Walker, I'm sorry, Commissioner Walker. I'm sorry. Hey, come back tomorrow. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Item 2A.
Item 2A is an evaluation of a request for an amendment to the Mojave County General Plan from a suburban development area land use designation to a heavy industrial land use designation, and an amendment to the Meconico area plan from suburban land use designation to heavy industrial land use designation for assessor parcel number 206-16022 in the Golden Valley vicinity. This is to allow for a propane storage and distribution facility. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? The applicant is not present. We have no speakers on the item. Does the commission have any questions of staff? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman,
Yes.
this property been before the commission many, many times. Is that the same one, or is it, I mean, over the span of many years,
Yeah, about 7 years ago, I think.
for the propane tank and the gas and things like that?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Azarmi, and members of the commission, I believe this is a different parcel.
Okay,
Oh, all right.
I think that was like 95 then.
Well,
Sorry, my bad.
I didn't think it was that far back, but I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for
Yes.
staff. Is this going to be similar to what's at 93 and where you turn off to go to Dolan Springs, that storage area?
Yeah, that I was confusing with, yeah.
Because it does a good job servicing that community, I know that.
Mr. Abbott, members of the commission, yes, it'll be a similar facility.
What threw me was that to allow for a 30,000-gallon propane storage. So is that going to be their main storage, then they'd put over into these smaller ones, the purpose? And distribute to the community or whoever their customer is? I was just trying to understand it a little better.
Yeah.
Not against
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Abbott, members of the commission, it is our understanding that this is basically the same facility. What they're doing is moving it. And it will serve the same function.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, cool.
I'll make a motion to approve for staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Abbott, a second by Commissioner Selberg. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 2B.
Item number 2B is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of assessor's parcel number 206-16022 from an M general manufacturing zone to an MX heavy manufacturing zone to allow for a propane storage distribution facility in the Golden Valley vicinity. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions.
The applicant is not present. We have no speakers on the item. Any questions from the commission to the staff?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I have a question for the staff. I assume that, they have to provide the permit from the state fire department and the state, agencies on that, right? In terms of fire protection?
Sure.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, yes, they will be reviewed. I'm not really sure how the mechanisms work with the fire marshal these days, but yes, they will be reviewed for fire purposes.
Yeah, I didn't see that on your requirement, so that's a given, then I assume.
Yeah, and I might note, Mr. Abbott was asking about
Size.
the size, but also the, whether or not it was going to be similar to Dolan Springs. I will note that this is not near Dolan Springs. We're talking down in the Mechanico area.
Right.
So it's some distance.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any additional questions of staff? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Second motion.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. And second by Michael Gordon. Thank you. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 2C.
Item number 2C is an evaluation of a request for a special use permit for assessor's parcel number 206-16022 to allow for a propane storage and distribution tank in an MX heavy manufacturing zone in the Golden Valley vicinity. The applicant requests a special use permit to allow for a 30,000-gallon propane storage and distribution tank. Staff recommends approval with the standard condition, with an added condition that the tank shall not exceed that 30,000-gallon capacity.
Okay, thank you. The applicant is not present. We have no speakers on the item. Any questions of the staff? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Selberg, second by Commissioner Azami. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 3.
Item number 3 is an evaluation of a request for a special use permit for assessor parcel number 3431924 and 251B to allow for a recreational vehicle and manufactured home park in a C2 1A general commercial 1 acre minimum lot size zone in the Meadview vicinity, Mojave County general area. This is, the applicant is seeking to expand the existing recreational vehicle park that is currently there. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions.
Is the applicant present? Applicant is present. We have no speakers on the item. Would you like to address the commission?
Chairman, Board, my name is Mike Kelly. I'm the owner of the park. I'm trying to expand it to provide a full-service RV park to our visitors here in Mojave County, so they have a clean, nice place to stay and a memorable experience while they're here in Mojave County.
Okay, any questions of the speaker? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I can ask a question?
Sure.
They're providing you like about 6 months' time, I guess?
Excuse me?
Item number 6. Have you paid attention to that item number 6 on the staff recommendation?
Item number 6.
If the use has been discontinued for 6 months?
Yes, once I get the application, if it's approved, I'll go down and get the blueprints.
So that you're okay with that item?
Well, it'd be nice if I had a little bit more time, but if that's what they want, I'll work with it. But if I could get 12 months, that would be really nice.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The engineering
For the
that
staff,
I've been using
or-
takes a little while to get the paperwork together.
Sure.
May I ask the staff or the director if there is any possibility for that?
Before we go any further, could you state your name and address? I'm sorry.
Michael Kelly, 28100 North Pierce Ferry Road.
Thank you.
This is just for... That's only if the use has been discontinued. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the 6-month time frame is only if the use has been discontinued for a period of 6 months. So if they start up the use and then all of a sudden they stop using the park for more than 6 months, then that's when it would be.
I understand that, but I'm saying that, for whatever the reason, if they, they have to put this, stop to the operation because of some legality or whatever, 6 months' time is not really enough time to approach, because I know that in the process, there might be some glitch that they start and then they have to stop. So my question is 6 months, is that something that is reasonable, or does it matter if you have 12 months? Or as long as the applicant is okay with it,
I would like
Are
to
we
ask for...
basically saying, after today, we approve it, he's got at least 6 months to get what he's doing done? I don't understand this.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, that's not what that condition
It's up and
says.
running
What that
Yeah, I know.
condition says is he establishes the park
Okay.
and then discontinues it, and then he's got 6 months to reestablish.
Do you understand what that's all about?
The RV park has been there for over 25 years, and it's in operation, and we just wish to expand it. And yes, if I could get 12 months just for...
Well, what this means is if you stop operating as an RV park for 6 months, if you just close everything down, this all goes away.
Okay, yeah, that
Okay?
won't be an issue.
So
then.
I don't think you're going to close it down.
No,
No. So that's what the 6 months is about. Okay?
thank you.
It was a little bit odd for me to see that 6 months period there. If they're in operation for 25 years or whatever, why that decision was there to go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, or
Azami.
Yeah. we got
Commissioner
it.
Zarmi. That's a standard condition that we put on all special use permits.
Okay.
Just so that if for some reason they move or whatever happens, and then the use stops, then it stops there. And
Okay.
then
All right.
whoever
All right.
comes in next would have to reapply.
Yeah. More than anything, it was for my own education.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Any additional questions of the speaker? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve for a staff recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Zami, a second by Commissioner Walker. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
today.
you.
Item number 4.
Item number 4 is an evaluation of an amendment to the Mojave County zoning ordinance, Section 37L, home occupation, to allow updates to be made to the home occupation ordinance to assure compliance with changes to Arizona Revised Statute 11820. This is brought to before you today because of the House Bill 2233 made changes to the current Arizona statute 11820. The changes that they made in the statute consisted of allowing more uses that did not cause on-street parking congestion or substantial increase in traffic. It also increased the number of individuals that could work at, in relation to the home occupation business to 2 individuals who are not residents of the primary dwelling or immediate family members of the home. And then we also made some changes ourselves to kind of update the ordinance itself by adding that applicants must have a Department of Revenue tax identification number to apply. We also added the zones A, which is general, R2, single-family medium density, and then RM, which is the multifamily residential. We also added a few definitions, clinic, immediate family, on-street parking congestion. Staff recommends approval of the amendment to Section 37L, home occupation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I read the whole thing. Okay, it's for the, home businesses and all that, which is fine, home-based businesses. The only problem I have is the 24-inch by 24-inch sign in front of the single-family residential to advertise for this kind of thing. So I don't know, is that something that, Mojave County can take out? Or I see that, a last report that you have, it says it's 11,820. I assume that's the copy from the state, right? So is there anything we can do to manipulate that 24 by 24 inch? Because, what I'm saying is, in front of every single family residential, you can have appliance repair. It can be flat tire repair, and the garage can be, there's no stipulation on it. It's very vague, it's very open, and I think that, at least the least we can do is to eliminate having a 24-inch by 24-inch sign in front of it.
Is item I part of the state, the new state law? I mean, or did we add that in there?
It's a state statute, I guess.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, Mr.
think we can
Azarmi,
take
and
it
members
out.
of the commission, that's part of state statute. And it says,
Number two.
Well, it says everybody can have a
okay,
24 by
displaying
24
a temporary
sign.
commercial sign on the residential property during business hours if the sign is not more than 24 inches by 24 inches. So we are required to allow them to have a sign that's placed out during business hours of at least that size.
Well, I says is allowed up to, so it makes it sound like it's not required, it's just allowed up to that
That's my
size.
question, is that, does the county have the,
What the lead-in is that any ordinance authorized by this chapter, that's the Chapter 6 of Title 11, any ordinance authorized by this chapter should not restrict or otherwise regulate the owner of a home-based business that holds a valid license from. So we cannot prohibit them from having a sign.
well,
that-
I can assure you that in Paradise Valley or in Scottsdale, they're not going to allow anybody putting in any 24-inch by 24-inch sign, and it's in Maricopa County, and it is in the state of Arizona. Somehow, there is a way, I assume, that, we can do that, because, what my point is that, anybody who wants to have any kind of business, and they can have family members, and they can have 2 employees, well, you can have like a full operation of a commercial there, and you can have in a very nice community or, any place, have advertised for, I know that, we had a situation in Fort Mojave area on Joy Lane. We had Fort Mojave Elementary School, and in front of it, there was a 2-acre, which I'm sure Chris knows about it. It was turned to a junkyard. And the sign, although the county had at that time a restrict sign, the sign says, if you leave your car here, we're going to, impound it. It was like an advertisement that, hey, if you want to get rid of your car, just, bring it and drop it over there. And gradually that became like a very hazardous, area. And the county had to take him to the court, and it took about 10 years, and nothing was accomplished until the gentleman passed away, and then, it was bought out.
What does that have to do with the 24 by 24 sign on a residential property?
Exactly. I mean, the whole thing is, I think home offices were designed for like accountants.
Right.
Or, sometimes architects or whatever. But this is going to open up a floodgate to any and all commercial application.
Yeah.
I can put a sign up there and say that, I'm, doing engine repair.
Yeah.
And I can take the car into the garage and, as long as the fire department doesn't, come and get on my case. Keith, what do you have?
Yep.
Down to 4, you can't do auto repair.
Oh, that's complaint driven though.
That's there, it's been there.
So is there anything that can be done on that?
What about putting CC&Rs in place that will do that?
It wouldn't work.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is part of a series of bills that's been brought forward by a state senator. And the county has expressed the concern that what we're actually doing by this series of bills that he has put forward is eroding the residential zone. And we're almost to the point where the residential zone is ineffective. You can run almost any kind of business. Now, one of the things we can do is to, the state statute says that the sign can be temporary. We don't have temporary in our ordinance. So one of the things we can do is add temporary or add a phrase or a word that inserts temporary into that sign. So it's not, it's only out in front of the business or in front of the home while while the
hours.
operation is holding business hours, and then it comes in at night. There is not a way to keep them from having a sign. And, you know, right now, all counties, and I think all cities are under the same set of rules. So if you're in Maricopa now, you have the same issue that we have, that the person who owns the home is running the business is allowed to have at least a temporary sign during business hours.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may ask, maybe we should table this until the time that, there will be a little bit more research on it done, because I know areas like Paradise Valley, as I said, or Scottsdale or whatever, they're not going to allow, any kind of sign. But is there any way we can look into it and, talk to the legal department to see how he would be able to do something and then bring it back?
Mr. Chairman, we can do two things. I will warn the commission, and I do appreciate the fact that, yeah, if you go to Fountain Hills or Paradise Valley, there are a lot of restrictions. A lot of those restrictions are part of the restrictive covenants and not part of state statute. We are a county, and what I can do is I can send out an email to all the other counties saying, have you thought about, or do you have something that
Right.
prohibits that your legal counsel thinks would hold up?
Okay.
I can also contact our legal counsel and
That'd be
ask
great.
him the same question.
I think it's very important. I think it's very, very important.
Can I,
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, it should only take us a couple of days or no more than a week.
So
to
we
do
can bring
that.
it back next month? Okay.
Exactly, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a staff question. Item A talks about the zones, the zoning districts that this is allowed to take place in. Is that regulated by these new state statutes, or is that a county choice as to where we allow home occupation to take place?
Charles Hammond.
Has left the conference.
I believe that the state just says residential property. Scott's given it a quick look over now.
It's
But
a vague.
if memory serves correctly, and I just read this a couple weeks ago, it says residential property.
It's a vague, very vague, open floodgate. I guess Robinson wants to.
We have one speaker, Steve Robinson.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I might point out, if this commission is concerned about this, the senator who has been sponsoring these bills is a gentleman by the name of Farnsworth, and he drops a couple every year. If the commission is concerned, we can let you know when he's dropped these bills. We are informed, we're noticed. We can let you know. We can shoot you a copy of the bill. If you have a concern, you can contact your state representatives.
That would be handy. Mr. Robinson, please state your name and address.
Stephen Robinson, 3967 North Mormon Flat Road in Golden Valley. I would like to encourage that you do delay it because Senator David Farnsworth has already dropped Senate Bill 1001, which does expand it. And I'm going to take a different tact. 10% of the unincorporated private land in Mojave County is urban. Butler, many areas in Mojave Valley. The vast majority of private lands are Golden Valley, White Hills, and everywhere where there's 1 acre minimum to 10, 20, 40 acres. These policies that are in force are adequate and appropriate, because I lived in Gresham, Oregon, and dealt with home-based business regulations there. But these laws are not effective and not appropriate in more rural areas of our county. In fact, I dare venture to say that the Wright brothers couldn't have built their plane in Mojave County under the current ordinances, nor could Compaq have developed the compact portable computer in Mojave County under these current regulations. Now, that's a little bit of an exaggeration,
yeah.
But the point is, I've looked through the regulations as they exist now, and it's, a 24 by 24 inch sign is in statute. We added the term unlit. Well, during the business hours, What's wrong, during the day, it may not be a problem, but at night, maybe there's someone that needs to. In the rural part of the county, these regulations are highly unfair to that, and I have seen where they have been used to stop a business. If a friend of mine had 2 or 4 acres, he ran of an appliance repair business, parking the trucks in his backyard on his 2.5 acres, and it was right next to BLM land in Golden Valley. Yet the county planning and zoning 15 years ago came down on him and forced him to stop his business. He then went to work for a contractor, and he was up on one of the buildings in Laughlin repairing an air conditioner at age 60, 57, and he ended up having a sunstroke and developing diabetes as a result of being forced out of his business that he was managing. I believe under the Senate Bill 1001, he's going to say up to 50% of the house can be used. He also says that, right now there's a restriction of 4 children for a daycare. The point is, there's so many unfair restrictions. I would be glad to make suggestions to help make it better to have businesses like we saw earlier set up in the rural parts where we don't have a lot of congestion, like Butler, like Mojave Valley.
I suggest that you get with planning and zoning, and tomorrow,
I'll sit down as soon as...
at least make a phone call to them, and maybe you've got some good things to say, and see what we can do about.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to rebut one part of Mr. Robinson's statement, and that is the fact that Mr. Farnsworth may or may not have already dropped another bill. And the reality of it is,
I have a
one
copy
is in
of it.
draft.
I have a copy.
Don't interrupt, please.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, excuse me, I have the floor. And, the fact of the matter is if he hasn't dropped it, he's preparing it. The problem is that we do not have the option of waiting until the legislature decides what, if anything, they're going to do with that bill. We still have the obligation to comply with the bill that was adopted last year now. And that's why we bring it for you.
Right.
If you're looking at, some changes you want, or if you want us to do some more research, I fully support that, and that's within your purview, I personally believe. But if Mr. Farnsworth bill, any one of Mr. Farnsworth's bills prevail, we'll just come back to you later on this year again and incorporate those changes. I don't think, we're not complying with the bill right now, so that's okay, because he's dropping another one.
Well, I think if you guys do a little bit of research, we probably will be able to solve
And we'll be happy to do that.
the
don't get me
majority
wrong.
of the issues.
Mr. Chairman, I think the item before us is right now,
Yeah.
this, 24 by 24 inch. And if we can somehow, look into it and find a solution to the problem, that would be good. And one thing you mentioned about, contacting the senator on this item, I think that, when that item comes up, I think if you would, bring it up to the attention of Planning and Zoning, and at the same time Board of Supervisors, because they, just like the water right now, that they form an opinion and they send, their opinion to the thing, we can do the similar. I think would be more effective that way.
I think so, too.
Average homeowner or average resident is not getting the information, or they're not interested as much as, let's say, Mr. Robinson, to follow every item on the agenda or anything like that. So I think that would be very helpful in the future if you have a situation like this, to react on time, not after it's already passed.
Yeah.
I think with that, do you think that 30 days is good enough, or? May I make a motion, or?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add to that is when we get done with this, maybe we could have the newspaper kind of do a reach out to the public to let them know what's going on with that. I don't know if that's something that we can do or not, but
Mr. Chairman, we can check and see if we can do some sort of press
News
release
release.
through the county manager's office.
yeah, something like that. I just think that most of the people have no idea what's going on, and we need to reach out to them and let them know.
Yeah, unfortunately, this item is like a one-size-fit-all.
Yeah, I know.
There is no, distinction between, rural and, suburban and anything like that, number one. Number two, it doesn't really specify what profession can use it, and it is a very vague, open floodgate. And it can cause a lot of problem. And then we were talking about, well, during the business hours, who is going to police, during the 24/7 versus the business hours?
Yeah,
The
nobody.
county is not going to have the manpower to do that. So if somebody, installs a sign and it's basically going to be 24/7, there's nothing can be done. And it can, I think, unfortunately, just like a lot of the other items coming from state, it has not been really looked into in depth and just, going that direction. So
move on.
with that, I'll make a motion to table this
Mr.
item.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Before we table it. I have a question when I read all this and I couldn't figure it out. There's a number of businesses in Mojave County. I consider them home businesses, or you consider it a business in a home. And what I'm getting at, the businesses that I know of, and it's more than one, they have businesses in homes where they take people in and try to help them get to live, to learn on their own. Now, that's a business in a home. These things affect that any?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Abbott, I'm kind of, in some regards, in answering this question, I'm going on the basis of some of the things that I know we've talked about in the past, which is living situations where individuals who, for whatever reason, don't assimilate into society like most people do and need some assistance from another
Right.
quarter to assist them in becoming competent in working in the society that we live in today. Those are actually a different class of land uses, and they have particular state and federal protections. And so in those instances, we actually work under a different set of rules with a different set of circumstances than we do. It's kind of the difference between the situation you're talking about, which is a living situation where people learn to be competent and living in that situation, versus an accountant or an architect who works out of their home.
Well, these businesses I'm talking about, though, have an office in that house, for example, that takes care of accounting. They take care of all the businesses related to that business. So they have people coming and going there
Right.
who work in that business part of it. And then they have people who work there that help try to develop those people to what the federal and state government is trying. You're right, it's federal and the state government program. So say it's not assisted living, but they are there during the day and then they go home at night.
Right. And Mr. Chairman, Mr. Abbott, depending on the situation and actually how the thing is operated, it could operate out with just a home occupation permit. Some of them become the size where they need use permits to make sure that there are basically additional conditions in place to ensure that they don't, for lack of a better word, wreak havoc with the residential neighbors.
So you don't think what we're talking about here affects, because I read down there some things that,
Mr. Abbott, members of the commission, we'd have to take into account both the rules under state statute for those people who are in homes where they're learning to be competent, and home occupations, see where they fit. A lot of it's going to determine how they operate the business, how many clients they have.
Yeah, because I read here like in 11-208 or 11 whatever it is, that they can have, what it says, they can have one client in there at a time. So you don't think this affects the people I'm talking about?
No.
Having more than one client on the property at one time?
Yeah, Mr. Abbott, members of the commission, if, okay, the situation, and that you're discussing, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Abbott, but I believe it's up off of College Road.
Well, that's just one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were, we came to a conclusion that allowed them to operate under our ordinances that existed at that time. That ordinance, which was much more restrictive than what we're talking about now. So I would argue if they could operate, I don't remember the particulars of that situation, but if they could operate under our ordinance at that time with the zoning they have, they could certainly do it today.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Because I just hate to see any more restrictions put on these kind of people, because many of them are doing it for a cause out of their heart. And man, they have enough problems running the business like they're trying to without any more restrictions.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
We do have, in the current land use ordinance, we do have the home office, application, like, as Chris said, about businesses that they can operate, like architects and all that. The fact is, I can understand your point of view, but we want to make sure that we are not going to open up a floodgate for those who are going to be abusive in certain areas, next to somebody's home that, is going to devalue. And the problem is that, as I said, unfortunately, one size fits all does not work in this application. And, when you're looking at item A, it says that the owner of a home-based business that holds a valid license from. Well, Mojave County does not have any sort of a licensing process for any of these businesses. I don't believe we have. We don't. So, for that reason, there's going to be a lot of complication. As I said, this is not, unfortunately, if they didn't do a good job in a state level thinking it through to see, in a statewide, what kind of problems is going to cause for the rural, for the suburban, for the urban, and all that. So I think it would be wise to have staff and the legal department look into it in depth and then bring it back. Maybe, we can, if we can manipulate it to be able to be suitable for those that you're talking about and the other, group that we are talking about, then that would be great.
What I would suggest is that if you have specific areas of this ordinance, maybe send an email to the director or something and let them be aware of our concerns about it so that they can address it themselves. I mean, we can debate it all day long here, but they're going to have to do some research themselves, and if there's anything in there that we need to address, then we probably need to do it that way.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
If that makes any sense to anybody?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I specifically remember the issue that Mr. Abbott is talking about, the actual location. And I will point out to the commission and Mr. Abbott that we have residential zones that allow assisted living and those kinds of facilities to be in residential zones. And that's what we did in that particular location, is the commission zoned it. Mm-hmm. So that that particular facility could operate pretty much according to any business model they wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at number 4, and it's got, 8 or 9 items on there that are strictly prohibited, mm-hmm. and that covers most of the issues, to me anyway, that are going to be issue.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with my concerns.
Yeah.
And
Mr. Chairman, to concur with Chris, like in Fairway Estates, which is a nice, I would say, medium range homes subdivision, and it does have CCNR. About 20 years ago, there was a, Serafino family. Mm-hmm. They opened up a 10, I think they have 10 nursing home for like 10 people. And, they're doing a great job. And the only thing that, the county imposed on them is not to have any signs in the residential area for that commercial application, which is, I think, very wise, and they're booked, and they have, they're doing a great job. So the only thing is, as I said, to make sure, and if you pass by, you don't even recognize that this is a nursing home for 10 people, and I was actually for it. The county at the time, was against it to some extent, so we had to come really before the, Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Supervisors to get it through. And since then, I know there are a lot of applications that way. The whole thing is to make sure that the ordinance or the state is not going to be abusive to those who are going to come in and cause devaluation on the neighboring properties. I said, like it says here, you can have selling or offering for sale any goods. Well, so I can have like a mini swap meet.
Yeah.
Right next to your home. So
Okay, let's move
that's
on.
the whole thing. So with that, I'll make a motion to table this for 30 days for the staff and legal department to look into it and bring it back before us.
Second motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Zami and a second by Commissioner Abbott. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Call to the public. Mr. Stephen Robinson. Please state your name and address, and you can talk about anything except any item that's on the agenda today.
Stephen Robinson, 3967 North Mormon Flat Road. To follow up on what I'd said last month, I did subsequent research into the water situation in Golden Valley. The USGS report that came out 5 years ago next month identified 4 levels or 4 types of hydrogeologic gatherings or soil conditions, and they ranged in specific yield, how much water, from as low as 6% to as high as 25%, which is loose, coarse rock with very high yield. 25% is extremely high. It turns out that virtually all of the 25% specific yield hydrogeologic unit is in Golden Valley. And that means that there is so much more water than is being admitted by that 2002 area plan. And I would respectfully request the commission to direct staff at some point soon to investigate redoing a 15-year-old area plan that I don't even believe was officially accepted at that time. And because zoning decisions are being made and planning decisions are being made right now in Golden Valley, adversely affecting the private property owners based upon an outdated and inaccurate analysis of the water level. The state of ADWR, they said in all 3 of the reports on detrital, Sacramento Valley, and Hualapai that the USGS report would supplant, which means would be superior to their report and would replace their report. There's 3 times as much water in Golden Valley as the Mojave County, or as the ADWR conservatively, by their own admission, estimated. So it does impact the private property owners in an area where there is oodles of water. I don't know if that's a scientific term. So I would just respectfully request that they look at doing a new area plan for Golden Valley. Thank you.
Okay. Well, what I would do as far as that goes, I would just contact Golden Valley Improvement District and talk to them, and they can get that moving.
They only control 40 square miles of 300. So
They're still their area plan.
And this was the bill that was dropped on November 15th.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Any reports or comments from staff or the commission? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Chairman Fluchet, if
Yes.
I may, sorry, I couldn't get the,
I'm sorry, I didn't notice you here.
I was pushing hard. I just wanted to let the commission know that beginning next week, we will be having some public meetings in all areas of the county. Tuesday will be in Bullhead, Wednesday in Lake Havasu. Thursday will be up in the Strip area, both Colorado City and Beaver Dam area. And then on Monday of next, Monday? Monday of next week, we'll be here in Kingman. So just wanted to those will be the public meetings with regards to the fee increases for both planning and zoning and building fees, so.
I have a question. Could you have your staff email us where those meetings are and what's going to be, just roughly what's going to be discussed in those, so if we think we can get some information we need, we can attend?
We'd be happy to.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Director Wash. Actually, that was very well advertised. They collected all the stakeholders of the community from all the contractors associations and all that. And they have, I have no idea the list of the emails that you have. I think it's in the neighborhood of 500, right?
We've got a pretty good list that we've,
Yeah, there's a very long list. So that was already emailed to all the stakeholders. And I believe the commission received something at one time. I don't know if it was Code Advisory Board or it was like the commission.
That may have been the Building Code Advisory Board.
Yeah, okay, so I mean, they do have, I mean, it's very well advertised. Yeah, because the complaint that they had before from some of the supervisors was that it wasn't, the stakeholders were not involved in the dialogue. And for that reason, it was well advertised this time. And it depends on the stakeholders if they participate. Like this afternoon at 1 o'clock, we have a Code Advisory Board, which for the second or third time, we are basically going back to, review certain things, and it's well advertised. Depends on who is going to show up and, the stakeholders, if they show up. But it is already advertised very well, and the staff and, director did a great job of communicating with the stakeholders. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Walker,
Kelly.
second by, right, by Mr. Gordon. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Thank you all for showing up.
It's all the Chinese battery, these Chinese.
I know, I'm just...